Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
I built a go-kart with my best friend Jake a few months ago. We're both almost 19 and we've been itching to take it out for a real spin. When the first snow in like 5-ish years hit our neighborhood, we knew this was our chance. The roads were empty, a perfect canvas for some drifting action. "Dude, this is gonna be epic," Jake shouted as we pushed the go-kart out of my garage. The cold air bit at our faces, but the excitement kept us warm. We carefully maneuvered the cart onto the street, making sure there wasn't a soul in sight. The snow crunched under the tires as we revved up the engine. It roared to life, echoing through the silent neighborhood. "Ready?" I asked, gripping the steering wheel. Jake nodded, his grin visible even through his thick scarf. "Let's do this." I hit the gas and we were off. The go-kart slid across the snow-covered road, leaving trails behind us. We whooped and hollered as we drifted around corners, the adrenaline pumping through our veins. "This is insane," Jake yelled over the engine's roar. "I can't believe how well it handles in the snow." We kept at it for a while, always staying vigilant for any cars or pedestrians. The last thing we wanted was to cause trouble or put anyone in danger. After about an hour of cruising the empty streets, we decided to mix it up a bit. "Hey, what about that grass patch near the neighborhood entrance?" I suggested. "We could kick up some snow there." Jake's eyes lit up. "Oh man, that'd be awesome, let's do it." We made our way to the entrance, where a large patch of grass lay hidden under a blanket of snow. As we approached, I could feel the anticipation building. "Hold on tight," I warned Jake as we hit the grass. The go-kart bucked and bounced as we tore across the field. Snow flew up around us, creating a white cloud that trailed behind. The occasional tuft of grass poked through, but we were having too much fun to care. "This is wild," Jake shouted, his laughter barely audible over the engine and the crunching snow. After a few passes, we decided to seek out new territory. That's when Jake spotted the church nearby. "Hey, check out that parking lot," he said, pointing. "It looks perfect for more drifting." I nodded and we made our way over. The church lot was empty, covered in a layer of slushy snow that promised excellent sliding potential. As we entered the lot, I could feel the go-kart's tires losing traction. "Here we go," I yelled, cranking the wheel. We slid sideways, leaving long arcs in the slush. The go-kart spun in circles, and we laughed like maniacs. It was pure, unadulterated fun. But after a while, the cold started to seep in. Our fingers were numb, and our toes felt like ice cubes in our boots. "Maybe we should call it a day," I suggested, my teeth chattering. Jake nodded, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Yeah, I'm freezing. Let's head back." We drove home feeling accomplished and exhilarated. As we pushed the go-kart back into the garage, we couldn't stop grinning. "That was amazing," Jake said, giving me a high five. "We've got to do that again sometime," I agreed. And we went inside to warm up with some hot chocolate. Our adventure wasn't quite over yet. About 5 hours later, I was in my room when I heard a commotion downstairs. Curious, I crept down to investigate and found my dad in the living room, looking frustrated. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked, trying to sound casual. My dad turned to me, his expression a mix of annoyance and concern. "Mr. Johnson from the HOA just left. He came by to complain about you and Jake." My heart sank. "What? Why?" Dad sighed. "He says you two almost ran over a lady walking her dog at night and destroyed the grass field at the entrance." I felt my face flush with anger and disbelief. "What? That's ridiculous. We were super careful not to go near anyone. And we definitely didn't see any lady with a dog. And we barely touched the grass." "I believe you," Dad said, holding up his hand to calm me down. "But Mr. Johnson was pretty upset. He said if it happens again, he'll call the police." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could someone twist our harmless fun into something so sinister? "Dad, I swear we were being careful. We wouldn't put anyone in danger like that." He nodded. "I know, son, but you've got to understand how it looks from their perspective. A couple of teenagers tearing around the neighborhood in a homemade go-kart, it makes some people nervous." I slumped onto the couch, feeling deflated. "So what happens now?" "For now, it's just a warning," Dad explained. "But you need to be more careful in the future. Maybe find a designated area for driving the go-kart, somewhere away from the neighborhood." I nodded, still fuming inside. It felt so unfair. We had been responsible, we had taken precautions, and yet here we were being accused of reckless behavior. The next day I met up with Jake to tell him what happened. We sat in my backyard, the go-kart sitting silently in the garage, a reminder of our now tainted adventure. "Man, that's messed up," Jake said after I finished explaining. "We didn't do anything wrong." I kicked at a clump of snow. "I know, right? It's like they're just looking for reasons to get mad at us." Jake leaned back in his chair, thinking. "So what do we do now? We can't just let them win and never use the go-kart again." I shrugged. "I don't know. My dad suggested finding a designated area to drive, but where? It's not like there's a go-kart track nearby. We sat in silence for a while, both lost in thought. The unfairness of the situation weighed heavily on us. We had put so much time and effort into building the go-kart, and now it felt like we were being punished for using it. Maybe we could talk to Mr. Johnson, Jake suggested. Explain our side of the story. I shook my head. I doubt he'd listen. He seems pretty set on painting us as the bad guys. Jake sighed. This sucks. We finally get some snow, have an awesome time, and now we're in trouble for it. I nodded in agreement. The excitement of our snowy adventure had been replaced by frustration and disappointment. It felt like we were being treated like children despite being on the cusp of adulthood. You know what the worst part is? I said after a while. It's not even about the go-kart anymore. It's about how quick people are to assume the worst about us just because we're young. Jake nodded. Yeah, it's like they forget what it's like to be our age, to want to have fun and experience things. We fell into another silence, each lost in our own thoughts. The go-kart sat in the garage, a symbol of our creativity and hard work, now tainted by accusations and warnings. As the days passed, the snow melted away, taking with it the evidence of our adventure. But the bitter taste of injustice remained. We found ourselves second-guessing every decision, wondering if we'd be accused of something else. One afternoon, about a week after the incident, Jake and I were working on some upgrades for the go-kart in my garage. The door was open and we could hear the sounds of the neighborhood, kids playing, dogs barking, the occasional car passing by. You know, Jake said, tightening a bolt, I've been thinking maybe we should organize some kind of event, show everyone that go-karting can be safe and fun. I looked up from the wiring I was working on. What do you mean? Jake shrugged. I don't know, like a demonstration or something. Invite the neighbors, show them how we built it. Let them see how careful we are when we drive. I mulled it over. It wasn't a bad idea, but I had my doubts. You think they'd even come? After all the fuss Mr. Johnson made, it's worth a shot, isn't it? Jake replied. At least then we'd be taking control of the narrative, you know? As we discussed the possibility, we heard footsteps approaching. We looked up to see Mr. Johnson himself walking towards the garage. My heart rate picked up and I could feel Jake tense beside me. Afternoon, boys, Mr. Johnson said, his tone neutral but his eyes scrutinizing the go-kart. Hello, Mr. Johnson, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Can we help you with something? He stepped closer, examining our work. I see you're still tinkering with this contraption. I bit back a retort. Yes, sir, we built it ourselves. Mr. Johnson raised an eyebrow. And you think it's safe to drive around the neighborhood? Jake spoke up before I could respond. Actually, sir, we were just discussing organizing a demonstration, to show everyone how safe it can be when used responsibly. Mr. Johnson looked surprised. A demonstration, I nodded, warming to the idea. Yes, we thought it might help alleviate some concerns if people could see it up close and understand how it works. Mr. Johnson was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke. I'm not sure that's a good idea. It might encourage other young people to build these things. I felt my frustration rising again. But sir, isn't it better to educate people about safety rather than just banning everything? Mr. Johnson's eyes narrowed. You two seem to forget that you're still in hot water over your little joyride. I'd tread carefully if I were you. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Jake and me staring after him in disbelief. Can you believe that guy? Jake said once Mr. Johnson was out of earshot. It's like he doesn't want us to have any fun at all. I sighed, feeling defeated. I know, it's like we're fighting a losing battle here. We went back to working on the go-kart, but the enthusiasm we'd felt earlier had evaporated. The weight of adult disapproval hung over us, casting a shadow on our project. As the days turned into weeks, the go-kart spent more and more time gathering dust in my garage. Every time we thought about taking it out, we remembered Mr. Johnson's warnings and the threat of police involvement. One evening, as Jake and I sat in my backyard staring at the setting sun, he turned to me with a determined look in his eyes. We can't let them win, he said firmly. We worked too hard on that go-kart to just let it rot in your garage. I nodded slowly. I know, but what can we do? It feels like the whole neighborhood is against us. Jake stood up, pacing back and forth. We need to find a way to change their minds, show them that we're responsible, that we're not just a couple of reckless kids. As we brainstormed ideas, the challenges seemed insurmountable. How could we convince a group of adults who seemed determined to see the worst in us? How could we prove our maturity and responsibility without giving up the things we loved? The go-kart, now silent in the garage, stood as a reminder of our creativity and hard work. Yet it also symbolized the ongoing struggle between our youthful enthusiasm and the caution of the adults around us. As night fell, Jake and I continued our conversation, our resolve strengthening with every passing moment. we didn't have all the answers, and we knew the road ahead would be tough. But one thing was certain, we weren't ready to give up on our dream just yet. The battle between youth and authority, between fun and caution, was far from over, and we were ready to face whatever challenges came our way, one turn of the wrench at a time. As someone that did their fair share of being a nuisance growing up, we made a point of not being a nuisance near our home. It's a don't shit where you eat kind of thing. Learn from this and do better. The lady walking her dog part, you can't really blame them for. Who should they believe, a lady just walking her dog, or kids illegally riding a go-kart around the neighborhood? It's called dirty hands, if you're already doing something illegal. People will always believe the person that's just minding their own business versus the ones that are already breaking the law and screwing around. I get it that it's just fun, but you should already know that they'll 100% of the time believe that lady walking her dog over anything you have to say. The other thing is, you're destroying grass. Yeah, I get that riding a go-kart around is fun, but it's not your grass. You're just costing the money to repair it and a headache from neighbors complaining. This is on you, dude. This is not on the, I get it. Go-karts are fun, I ride them too, but if you're destroying things, etc., this is all on you. You're the asshole in this situation. Yeah, sorry, but you won't get a lot of sympathy on this one. Take your go-karts out to some public land with no neighbors or rules, please. Literally no one wants the noise, and you're almost certainly breaking the kinds of rules that people actually want HOAs to enforce.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.